Hello, friends. This is Susan, and I'm here to talk to you about the crazy week of December 3rd. Well, we're doing it on December 3rd. It would have been the 1st until about the 7th, 8th of December. And I wanted to just touch base with you because I'm in India at the moment in the middle of Wayanad, which is a special region in Kerala, which is a nature reservation. So we're not getting great Wi-Fi, and I don't know if I can even upload this video. We'll find out later. So I can't do the video as I normally do, which is via Zoom, because I can't get a decent bandwidth. So we're going to try a new thing. I got a screen recorder, and we'll just have to make do with this. I wanted to just first of all say thank you to those of you who are in India and who've so graciously invited me to visit. I'm only here for 1 month and I'm doing an Ayurvedic cleanse, so I'm kind of more or less bound to the center where I am. Lots of ups and downs while you're doing a cleanse that's this intense, and so there have been some good and bad days, but all in all it works out very well. And I'm feeling great. I'm feeling back almost on normal form. So we're getting to the root of some long-standing immunity issues and other things that are extremely frustrating, because I live like a nun basically, and still I have these things that creep in every now and then. So if you feel like you'd like to go through a cleanse, I'm doing my now annual, it used to be biannual, but anyway, annual cleanse from the 1st of February till the 28th of February. And that will be for anyone who wants to really just boost your health as much as you can. And if you feel you need further treatment, I can guide you to go in different areas, different people, and to have a deeper look at your health. But we work for 1 month to basically to take away whatever is unhelpful to your health and create some new habits over that period of time, as well as creating a better relationship to food and to your own body. So if that interests you, then check the description below this video and you'll find the links there for the cleanse. And there's an early bird price until the end of the year. And if you've done the cleanse before, some people like to come back and do it again and again. And for those of you who are coming back, you'll get a 15% discount. And the early bird discount is 10% off. So I do hope you join me. And it's really a lot more fun to do it with other people when you're trying to change habits and feel good. It's a great way to propel yourself into the spring. So the other thing I'm organizing is a course on astrology, which has taken me quite a while to get my head around, because people have asked me for a while to be teaching how I read a chart, and to be honest, I'm not even sure how I do it. So it took me a while to figure out how I would actually break it all down. So I think I've kind of got that, and I'm trying to put that together for all of you, for any of you who want to join me. We're doing 10 sessions spread out over 12 weeks. So there's 2 pauses so that you can digest a little bit, integrate what we've done, maybe come back with questions, and also perhaps catch up in case you weren't able to follow each session. Ideally, you will be there for each session. And I understand for some people, especially in the Pacific region, it's going to be difficult given the timing, but I've tried to create it on a Sunday at a time where most time zones are more or less able to fit in. So I do hope you can join me for that, and the details for that are also below. So back to this first week of December. Now, I've completely missed the 9-degree new moon that was in Sagittarius. So for those of you who are avid watchers of astrology videos, you'll already know about this. So we did have that new moon on the 1st of December, universal time. For many of you in North America, that would have been very late in the day on the 30th of November. And so that was at 9 degrees of Sagittarius. And overall, that message of Sagittarius is always about having a sense of what you believe in. What do you have faith in? What is your sense of maybe your purpose or your sense of reason behind what you do in life? This was trining Mars. And Mars is currently at 6 degrees. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. I'm doing a screen video, so I'm hoping that everything that I'm doing on the screen also will show up. So we've got Mars at 6 degrees. The Sun is currently at 11, but it was at 9 degrees. Now the Moon has moved into a square with the nodes. I'll talk about that in a minute, the 2 days after this new moon. But the message behind this new moon is to really clarify your sense of your drive and your sense of what you believe in, what you have faith in. And just a very brief anecdote. I 2 days back lost my uncle. So he died, in fact, on the new moon. He was very elderly, had lived quite a long life, and for the last 15 years of his life, he had Alzheimer's. So it's a bittersweet loss. But it brings up an enormous amount of emotions. And the prior week, because I'm in quite a serious Ayurvedic center, there are people who come here with really advanced illnesses. And one of the women who was here died of very advanced cancer. So it's been an interesting time where there's been a lot of emotion and a lot of trying to come back to what is essential, what is real, what is life. And this is something that I think we all need to keep in mind and keep preparing ourselves for, because we will all die. As the saying goes, none of us gets out of here alive. And it's important to understand how our relationship is to life. And this is something that astrology can help us with, particularly so when you don't take astrology too seriously. And that sounds a bit paradoxical, but you could also say don't take life too seriously. For example, when you have a sense that things are happening through you as opposed to you, that life is not personal, that we've all come here to experience a personal sense of life. We're our own little individual perspective on what it means to just flourish and be alive. And so there's nothing owed. Life doesn't owe us anything. And we simply have to keep creating, and every day making the most of something. This is also very Sagittarian, this sense of aspiring to something, a sense of growing into something, and also having a sense of purpose. Why would life be? Why am I here? What can I contribute? And so this is, in the fire element, very inspiring, and very open and a creative energy in fire. It can also be very strong in terms of dogma. And this is where Sagittarius starts to go a little bit pear-shaped, and where dogma can actually cause issues of frustration, because we want things to be a particular way when we live through dogma, when we live through a sense that this is the right way. And having an understanding of life being quite fluid, and most of life being actually hidden from our awareness, is a more helpful way of understanding the natural flow of things. Currently, we're in the south of India here, we're having quite a lot of rain. There's been a cyclone moving through, and the weather has just been quite menacing. Luckily, it hasn't been as bad as it was 3 or 4 months ago, when they did have massive and quite deadly flooding. But even in the north, where I often go, in Haridwar, Rishikesh, Dehradun, in that area of Uttarakhand, there's flooding, and some people have died. And this is all very unexpected. Life is coming through these unexpected things always, and we can say, yes, it's maybe because of weather manipulation, it's because of whatever variation of climate change you subscribe to, or whatever variation of the inherent changes of the universe that are going on. Can't deny that things are actually shifting all around us, and we don't really have much say in that. Well, of course, you can go and tell your governments to stop manipulating the weather. That would also be very helpful. But at the same time, we don't have a whole lot of choice when the weather is happening in the moment. Same thing when somebody passes. We're only left with what we have deep inside as a reference point. And this is where Sagittarius understands, what do I believe? What is the faith that I subscribe to? What is the essence of what I know? To know is Sagittarius. And it's often equated with knowledge, and so it becomes very brainy and dogmatic, and the sort of know-it-all way of looking at things is also very Sagittarian. So there's also monkeys If you're hearing strange noises, this monkey's jumping on my roof. So if I jump out of my skin, that's also why. I try and prevent them from getting in my room, but they always try and sneak in. So they're cute, but not very, also very unpredictable. They're right in the theme. Very unpredictable, yet very cute. So anyway, back to Sagittarius, where there can be this sense of, I know, I already know, don't tell me, I already know. And that can be for good or bad, in the sense that I already know and I'm committed to my path, and I'm committed to the thing that I want and the thing that I hope for, that I strive for. But it can also be that I already know, and I know better than you, and I know better than anybody else, or my religion is better, or my political system is better, or my belief is better, for example. And this is something that we have to question, regularly question. How do I know what I know? Who told me that? Have I understood that in the visceral sense of knowing that I have a deep knowledge that is the close proximity to the truth in our human experience? Or is it something that I have received as a tradition? Have I received it as a belief? Is it something that my society believes and I just simply subscribe to? So all of these understandings of what we know are really, really important. And trying to get a grip on all of that is a very helpful thing, because when something happens that's quite catastrophic, a loss of life, a loss of property, a loss of relationship of any kind, it's important to be equipped with what we have faith in. What do we know? What can we know for sure? And it's very seldom coming from this place of concepts and ideologies that Sagittarius so strongly generates. It's coming from a visceral faith, coming from more of a Piscean energy of having faith based in all that is, based in the vast sense of what life entails, not a sense of what life should be like, my preference for life. So both signs are ruled by Jupiter. So here we have Saturn still today in a square to the Sun. As I'm doing this, I'm doing it on the 3rd, so I didn't even bother to call up the new moon video, because I want to move forward in time and talk about Mars and Neptune. But just to say that the Sun is squaring Saturn, and this is also an interesting time where our sense of purpose and self can be challenged, and Saturn can challenge that. Both are ruled by Jupiter. And Sagittarius carries the Jupiterian quality of wisdom and knowledge that is more of the human kind, human justice, understanding bigger principles, bigger concepts, philosophies, ideologies. And Pisces, also ruled by Jupiter, is more of the what you might describe as divine knowledge, divine law, or divine or natural law. And this is something to keep in mind, because this is for the next more than a year. We still have Saturn in Pisces, and so there's going to be a lot of testing around what is divine law compared to what we consider important, or what we consider to be right and wrong. Sometimes things are a little bit more fluid than we are ready to grapple with. And we look at the horrid situations around the world, we look at some of the death and destruction that's being wrought around the world, and the injustice is so obvious. The human notion of injustice is so glaring. And yet at the same time, we have to expand that vision where we have Neptune and where we have Saturn, and expand that vision. In order to stay sane, we need to expand the vision of what is right and wrong, and understand the bigger principles. One of the natural laws of life, of all forms of life, is karma. When I do the astrology course, we'll talk a lot about karma, because astrology is simply a reflection of karma. And karma is not about being punished for bad deeds or getting rewarded for good deeds. That's one very superficial aspect of it. But karma is simply things that are happening that are a causation. They are the cause. They're resulting from a prior causation, something that has already happened that is leading to the next thing. And so everything that is happening is a consequence of what has already gone. And this is something to keep in mind. There's a bigger flow. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try and stop certain things from happening, or that we shouldn't try and start other things from happening. But it just means that we have to take a really big picture of life in all of its different forms, as opposed to getting right down into the granular details of what's going on and feeling injustice around those things, where we can end up getting wrapped up in our version of what is right and what is wrong. It's extremely hard when there's violence and when there's loss and when innocent lives are lost, especially. That can never be right. It can never be good. And yet at the same time, again, as I say, to save our sanity and to be able to live in this world, we have to expand our vision of what life is all about. And life is not about this short, brief moment in time. It's a vast, multi-layered, multi-realm aspect of this universe. And when we start to understand how complex and how vast life is and how minute we are, that's the old way of teaching about that, is that grain of sand on a beach amongst billions of grains of sand, amongst billions of beaches, amongst billions and billions of planets in the universe. And at a certain point you realize, oh, I'm just one little phrase of a much larger story, and maybe even one syllable in a much larger story, which doesn't mean that it's not relevant. It just means that it's only one thing that's happening, and we're fitting in this moment in time to a bigger thing that's happening. So the more that we can try and get our head around what we have faith in, what we believe in, what we think is right, is where we start to find our capacity for action in this moment based on what is right for this moment in our lives. And we can only act based on what is appropriate in our own lives. We can't force other people to change their behavior. We can't convince people who have been convinced, again, if I use that Sagittarian element of dogma, if they're living through a dogma, it's almost pointless to try and reason with somebody who is living through dogma. So we have to act as if, we have to act in our lives in a way that creates as much of what we want to see as possible. And that's the Saturn in Pisces. It's coming to this place of structuring our spiritual self, embodying our spiritual self in life, and getting to this place where we understand that there's an aspect of all life that is common, regardless of personalities, regardless of certainly nationalities and so-called races and ideas that people are different. Finding that common space, kind of finding that the common seed of existence and operating from that place. And as much as possible from the center of your being outwards to create this way of living that is coming from a place of harmony. So that means that we need to understand our beliefs so that the actions that we take are really grounded in what is harmonious, what is true for us. Now, around the time of the new moon, we had this trine to Mars. The sun is moving away from that trine to Mars. Mars is still broadly trining the North Node that it's ruling. So still lots of energy around action. What action do I want to take? Mars at this point, on the 3rd of December, as I'm making this video, is still at the degree that it has been for quite some time, and it will be only 2 arc minutes of a degree away from the place that it's retrograding. So stationing retrograde on the 6th of December. We'll see that in a minute. But all of this energy of trinal fire is to pull this sense of faith and belief and bring it out into the world, bring it into a place of action. The sun rules Mars because Mars is in Leo, so the sun trining Mars is a very interesting dynamic. And then Mars rules the North Node, and because the North Node is in Aries, which Mars also rules. And so there's this quality of dynamism about the new direction that we need to take. And I want you to take this as personally into your own experience of life at this moment as you can, understanding that there is a new direction. This is not about what you've done before, even if you might include aspects of what you've done before. Things need to be done differently. Participation in society needs to be different. We see that with Pluto going into Aquarius. Our society is shifting, and the way that we engage in society over these next couple of decades with Pluto in Aquarius is going to be shifting. And we're only at the very beginning of it. And we're still including what's been going on in Capricorn. We're not letting go of what has already been done through Pluto in Capricorn. We're building on it. Think of it. Astrology is both like building blocks as we move through the zodiac, but it's also in terms of deepening understanding and bringing awareness forward in time. And so what we've understood of the last 16 years, we need to bring into our new frame of reference socially. And this is something that's also quite very, very much linked to what you feel personally you want to achieve in this lifetime. And here I want to come back to this sense of maybe Sagittarian sense of purpose, or what I need to aspire to, what I need to achieve, and understand that all life has value. The monkeys jumping on my roof have value. They have purpose. You don't need to accomplish grand things. You don't need to be famous, certainly not. Most people who want to be famous are quite mentally unbalanced, actually, and so there's a need for fame. That's not something that's necessarily worthy of striving for, but really understand that you're valid, you're valuable as you are, and sometimes the most important way to contribute to life is to stay at home and raise children, or to rescue cats, or to just be that person that keeps the neighborhood clean and tidy, and nobody even knows. All of these little day-to-day gestures has been what all of history has been built on. All of life has been built on humble, anonymous people doing minor things day to day to day. Every now and then you get somebody who stands out, whose name is imprinted in a book or acknowledged in studies or something like that. And those are exceptions. And you mustn't think that if you don't have that kind of quality, that somehow your life is worthless. Because if you think of our whole cosmos as a giant, constantly moving, shifting puzzle, your aspect, yourself, the way that you are, fits into the puzzle. It's a necessary part of it. And when your physical self is no longer here, you still fit in to that in a new form, in a different energy, different form. None of it is wasted, and none of it is measured based on what have you contributed in terms of your material output. That's only a human idea. That's only an idea of the mind. So this notion of what is next for me, this Mars quality, is going to be challenged in a couple of days when Mars goes to station retrograde, and then Mars will be retrograde, first moving through Leo until the 6th of January, and then moving through Cancer until 17 degrees of Cancer, where it stations direct on the 24th of February. And when Mars is retrograde, it's a brilliant opportunity to understand what is my life goal, my purpose. Mars is about what action should I take? How do I engage with life? What are my ambitions and my drives? What is it that I want to achieve in this moment of time? How do I want to achieve it? And then that will be, of course, reflected in the Leo house that Mars is in your chart. So that will be different for each individual. I'll go through that quickly later. So that Mars quality of where am I going, what am I doing with all of this, is going to be thrown inward now as Mars retrogrades. It's not that you don't take action. It's not that you try and then things fail. Great things can happen when planets are retrograde. It's not a time to stop trying. But sometimes you'll find that the moment or the energy is not behind what you want to do. So it's a time to refine. It's a time to shed, because Mars is also about shedding, letting go. Certainly we see that with Saturn in Pisces, and then approaching Neptune as well in Pisces. And with the North Node coming into Pisces, we're also at the end of something, meaning that this is an opportunity to really look at what needs to be shed, what needs to be let go of. Start from the most subtle level. What ideas do I need to throw away? What concepts, what beliefs and things are holding me back? And then go to the gross level, towards things that are your stuff, your belongings. What things in my life are holding me back? What am I afraid of losing, and why am I afraid of losing that? What does it mean to me? What status does that hold for me? And is that something that is important to me? And then you can ask yourself in terms of, will this matter in 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 years or 50 years? Will any of it matter? And then start to understand that all of those extraneous things are holding you back from taking action. So Mars retrograde is not, don't use astrology as an excuse to not do things. It's an opportunity for you to deepen your understanding of your own goals and your sense of what is right. Leo is about integrity, acting from a place of integrity, acting from a place of what is true for you and what is important for you, as I mentioned earlier with the aspects of the new moon still for the next month in Sagittarius. At the end of the month, on the 30th, we'll have a new moon then at 9 degrees of Capricorn, and I'll be back in Spain with Wi-Fi to be able to talk more about those things as well as the month goes on. So I just wanted to briefly touch on the moon in a square to the nodes. I always see the chart. In fact, I shifted the chart before recording, but when I clicked on the chart, it was exactly square. The moon was exactly square the nodal axis at 4 degrees and 3 minutes. Now it's at 4 degrees 4 minutes as I'm talking. It will have moved on a couple of arc minutes of a degree in the meantime. But why that's important is I always look at the chart a little bit like drawing a tarot card, so that you can see things coming out of the chart that are quite substantial. And here we have a moon not in strong dignity. The moon is in a place of duty and a little restriction, where the moon is normally ruling. The moon rules Cancer, the opposite sign to Capricorn. And here we have the moon in Capricorn, where often there's a feeling of limitation, restriction, especially emotionally. There can be a restriction around emotions and a restriction around how we connect. We become perhaps a little perfunctory. We get into doing things because we should. We get into doing things because we must, because it's our duty and responsibility. And this is also Mars in Leo as well. Duty, responsibility is quite strong for Mars in Leo, one of the better qualities. And we also have this aspect of the moon. They're squaring the north node that I was talking about, having been trined by Mars that's ruling it. And in the square, when the moon is in the square, this is also part of where we want to pull our attention in any given moment, especially if it's a natal chart, but just in this moment. And so look at the qualities of where you might feel it's difficult to connect emotionally with what's going on. Where you might be going through the motions every day, where you might be on autopilot, or where you might be doing the thing that you think you need to be doing based on what you already were told, or based on how you may have felt shamed or embarrassed into doing something, taking responsibility perhaps even for other people's things. Not to blame them for having done that, but to recognize that you're taking responsibility for other people's things, maybe a childhood pattern of trauma or something that you have learned that you can also unlearn, that you can come closer to yourself and what is your path, so you don't disturb your life path, your way of moving forward through life by holding on to resentment or this idea of I don't have a choice. Saturn is ruling the moon. At the moment, Saturn is also ruling Venus, and Venus is sextiling Neptune. And so that's most of this week, that Venus sextiles Neptune. So this can be very creative and give lots and lots of ideas. And as the week moves on, Venus is going to come into connection with Pluto, which is going to be merging with Pluto. So this is also a really interesting part of the dynamic as we're building up to these new connections. Again, new social connections, new values, Venus, Pluto. And also with Venus in a sextile to Neptune, this is a very compassionate energy. So where the heart might be protecting itself, or the mind and heart complex might be protecting itself out of a need to just keep your head down and go and do what needs to be done in difficult circumstances, we also have this opening, we have this capacity here to become more compassionate, to become more soft-hearted towards ourselves, so that the healing can also happen in a way that's helpful for all, for you and for everyone. We have also at this, around the time of the new moon, and then in the days following, we have Mercury retrograde. Mercury has been retrograde since the 25th of November, and it continues its retrograde until the 15th of December. And we also have Jupiter retrograding, and Jupiter is just about at 17 degrees, Mercury just about at 18 degrees, so they're very strongly in opposition to each other, and this creates a mutual reception, which is a very helpful contribution to each other. Each planet rules the sign that the other one is in. And because of that, even though they're both of them not in their best dignity, they're not in their best place, they're getting help from each other. And so here, this is another opportunity, another invitation, going inwardly, going deeper into one's sense of self, to be able to understand what is my knowledge, what is my belief, what is my way of expressing that, my way of communicating that, how do I learn from that, and understanding what it is that you can do about that going forward. So this is the integration part, I would say, of this new moon phase. This new moon phase, remember, lasting the whole month of December, from 1st of December until the 30th of December. We're in the Sagittarius new moon phase, and this opposition from Jupiter to Mercury, or rather to Mercury to Jupiter, is helping us integrate what we need to understand, what we need to know about that. Then we have this Mars. If we move forward day by day, we can see how things are shaping up. We now have Mars now retrograding on the 7th of December. And at the same time, soon after that, I'm going to go hour by hour because I think it's really quite soon after that, we have then Neptune, which is stationing direct. So we have a really interesting transformation of energy here as Mars stations retrograde, Neptune stations direct. Could have done this day by day in the end. There we go. So also on the 7th, look at that, nearly at the end of the day, universal time. This is universal time that I'm using here, by the way. So almost midnight, universal time, we get Neptune, which is stationing direct, and we now have Mars retrograding at 6 degrees and 9 arc minutes of a degree of Leo. So these two planets changing directions, the Neptune is not as strong. We don't really notice these outer planet shifts. They're not as impactful. But what's really interesting is at the same time that Mars is stationing retrograde and keeping, by the way, the trine that it has to the north node that it's ruling, and as Neptune is stationing direct, we have Venus merging with Pluto all on the same day. So again, don't think, oh my God, what's going to happen on the 7th of December? What's going on? Something might happen. Something very interesting might happen in your life. That can often be the case. Or you can decide that something will happen and you can initiate something or start something if you want. And you can certainly, starting a personal inquiry or a healing journey or something like that would be a brilliant use of this energy, for example. But just keeping in mind that we're in these multi-layered shifts of energy. Venus is the exaltation ruler of Pisces. So she's ruling all these planets now in Pisces. And as this is happening, also, we're going to get the first quarter square of the moon. So it'll be hours after the direct station of Neptune and the retrograde station of Mars. But then we get the first quarter moon. And so what's been going on since the 1st of December and that phase, this new phase of Sagittarius, is telling us something about what we need to understand in the first quarter phase, which is often it's called the crisis of consciousness, where we're looking at the awareness that has come from what we've understood and what we are digging deep to understand. So the more that you can come to this understanding, the more that you can work with that understanding, the more profoundly you're going to experience life and the changes that life is going to bring about. We have Venus, again, the exaltation ruler of Pisces, but also the ruler of the South Node still, while the South Node is in Libra, and that's going to be until the 10th, 11th of January. So we've got 1 month, pretty much, of the nodal axis still in Aries and Libra. And so this still refers to relationships, and it's very much part of what the last couple of years of the eclipses and then the nodal axis moving through Aries and Libra have been all about. With Venus and Pluto together, and especially in in Aquarius, it definitely calls back in this notion of how do we fit in to society? What is my relationship to society? What can I shed about the way that I relate? That's Venus ruling the South Node in Libra. What can I shed about that I can transform, that I can internalize, and I can work through? Pluto is also about where we struggle with power between individuals or between other forms of groups or societal, social or political, religious groups. Like that's the Aquarian energy of society, clusters of different people emerging through society, and how we're relating to all of that. And is there a pattern that we're holding on to that we need to change, to really dig into how we understand our way of showing up in society? Is it constructive? Is it destructive? Is it something that is worth pursuing, or is it something that requires a little bit of reflection and perhaps change? And this is a very strong week, this whole first week of December, but think of it as a shifting of the tides that's moving you in a new direction. It's moving us all slowly in a new direction. It's not a thing that's going to happen again to you, or that something will happen that you then respond to necessarily. For many people, it's going to be incredibly subtle. It's going to be incredibly deep and personal. And for others, there may be an event that happens that is actually quite obvious, and that there is actually a need to react and to respond. Right, and I didn't mention the Chiron. There was, in fact, a trine of Chiron to Mercury at the time of that new moon. That, for me, again, just once again, just really calls in this energy of needing to reflect on perhaps childhood wounding or issues around our own self-sabotage, how we conduct ourselves in a way. I find Chiron reflects this, that we conduct ourselves often in a way that is undermining our own best interests and undermining what we actually think we want consciously. So Chiron going through Aries has been a collective reflection, let's say, of our self-image, who we think we are and how we operate, where we might operate from a place of selfishness, thinking in terms of being an isolated factor rather than a factor of unity, just one of many, that is everything that we're doing affecting all. So with the trine to Mercury, that is an opportunity, which again, remember, was at the 1st of December. We're now at the 7th. It's no longer in application. But that trine from the beginning of the month is kind of, again, another spark of where can I reflect on these things as Mercury is retrograde, as Chiron is now coming close to its station. Chiron very soon is going to be stationing direct. That's also at the end of December. So we're getting a lot of this energy that's insisting on a way of shifting our perspective on ourselves, looking at the direction that we're taking. Mars especially saying, what am I here for now? We may have had a thing that we were really excited about, or that was very important, or that was even more relevant in a prior time, and now is a new moment. This moment requires an adjustment in the way that we're working. Soon after the conjunction between Venus and Pluto, getting to the root of how we relate, what our values are, how we explore all of that, Venus will be in opposition. Now we'll go back to the days here so we can see Venus moving along in opposition to that Mars. And we have Venus at the 6 degrees opposing, I'm not going to be too exact. I'm just trying to make this video quick because I have to upload it on very dodgy Wi-Fi. So I'm not going to be able to go and linger in the details. But anyway, let's imagine Venus and Mars are in exact opposition. We're going to call that the 12th of December, but it will actually be something that's happening over a span of days. And you can certainly say that from about the 9th of December, 9th, 10th of December, and all the way through the middle of the month, Venus is opposing Mars. And so let's say until the 14th of December. And then that will bring us to the full moon, where we have then a full moon in Gemini. And that full moon is going to be a reference to what we've already begun at the beginning of the month, but also a reference to what was happening in the spring when we had the new moon in Gemini 6 months before. So, I say spring, northern hemisphere spring. Sorry to all of you in the southern hemisphere, that's of course your autumn. So that would be back in May, I think, or early June. I can't remember the date off the top. Anyway, all this to say, we're getting a really big push in a new direction. It needs to be new, and therefore so do you. You want to refresh your sense of self. And it's about refreshing your understanding of what life is, coming from that philosophical place, that Sagittarian place of what is life all about? What is the meaning of my life? What is the meaning that I give it? There's no inherent meaning to life. It's that you give your life meaning by doing things that you're capable of doing in the moment that you can do them. And from one day to the next, that might change dramatically. And for some people, it's a continuum of many decades of life, if you're lucky to live that long. So I wish you all a very, very happy and wonderful month of Sagittarius. It's often a very uplifting energy. Certainly take the inspiration from this energy. I will come back and do a sign-by-sign video. I won't be able to do it all in this video because I just don't think I have the bandwidth to upload it, and I need to keep the videos short just so I can reach out to you all. So here's the part one, we'll call it part one of this December journey that we're all on, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for being here.